Hey guys, we're going to take a further look into cellular respiration. So you'll see here that cellular respiration and photosynthesis work together in the carbon cycle here. So you'll see that photosynthesis fixes carbon from the atmosphere and it fixes it into organic molecules. So these organic molecules are then used in cellular respiration in the mitochondria to generate ATP, which we use in our bodies. If we're looking at an overview of cellular respiration, today we're going to take just a quick look at glycolysis. You'll notice glycolysis on the far left side of the image, where we have glucose breaking down into pyruvate. You'll see that it's in the cytosol of the cell, or the cytoplasm of the cell, and this is just important simply to know that the products of pyruvate need to be transported into the mitochondria for the other processes of cellular respiration. So let's just take a further look into that process of glycolysis. So glycolysis is sugar splitting, okay? This is the process to break down glucose into more simple molecules. The simpler the molecules we have, the greater ability we have to break it down into ATP. Also, when we break the bonds of this glycolysis, energy is released to generate that ATP. So we break our 6-carbon sugar down into 2 3-carbon sugars. So what that means is we break our 6-carbon ring of glucose into 2 different molecules of a 3-carbon sugar called pyruvate. And as I mentioned, this occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell. And we have to think about glycolysis in 2 different phases. The first phase is energy investment. We need to invest some energy in order to get some energy payoff. So just like in the bank, you need to put money in the bank in order to get your interest on that money or your energy payoff. So we have to look at that as we go through here. So the net energy yield from glycolysis is from 1 glucose molecule. So from a single sugar molecule, we get 2 ATP and 2 NADH. Now just a reminder that those 2 NADH are just high energy molecules, as well as ATP is sort of the usable energy in our body. We know that if our net energy is 2 ATP, then we've had to invest some energy. We don't yet know what that is, but we've had to invest some energy in order to get that net energy yield. Okay. No carbon dioxide is released during glycolysis, so that's something that's important to consider, simply just because we have to know where the products of our overall reaction for cellular respiration is. We have to know where carbon dioxide is released, so it's not during glycolysis. This happens later in the cycle. And glycolysis occurs with or without oxygen present. So this happens in both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Doesn't matter which organism it's in, it occurs. And glycolysis is the conversion of energy from our food into ATP. So energy investment. This is the first phase that we're going to look at, in terms of glycolysis. So glycolysis spends 2 ATP molecules. In other words, energy is invested into the glycolysis process. A redox reaction occurs using 2 NAD positive molecules to take away 2 hydrogen ions from the pathway to form 2 NADH molecules. This means that 2 hydrogen ions are released into the cytoplasm. And in terms of this slide here, all I really want you to know is that we have NAD positive also interacting here. So we have 2 ATP spent as well as 2 NAD positive removing hydrogen ions to form NADH. So then we look at energy payoff. Enough energy is released from the electron transport chain to create 4-ADP, or to join 4-ADP with phosphate groups to create ATP. So what I mean by the electron transport chain is the energy invested from ATP on the previous slide, as well as the NADH on the previous slide. There's enough energy released there that we can create 4-ATP. Okay, these ATP molecules are then available to supply energy for cellular functions, which is super important. As we mentioned, they can be for like cellular transport, any sort of basic cell function, turning reactions on or off, bioluminescence, motion, anything like that. So our net glycolysis reaction is one sugar molecule producing 2 ADP with 2 phosphates and 2 NAD positive, which produce 2 pyruvate molecules, 4 adenosine triphosphate, and 2 NADH with 2 hydrogen removed as well. Since glycolysis only harnesses 2 ATP molecules, most organisms require further processing to gain additional energy. So 2 ATP isn't enough energy to supply for the body. We need more energy than that in order to function. So we need to look at further mechanisms of providing energy to a system. So when we look at glycolysis, if you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's the free energy arrow pointing up. So as we go up in the graph, we have more energy. So as we look at glucose, we have a medium amount of energy to start out with, and then we need to invest ATP. Well, the investment of ATP releases energy when we break the bonds, creating ADP, and we have a high energy molecule at sort of the top of this graph. Okay, and what happens is as this molecule gets broken down and goes sort of down the electron transport chain here, energy is released, creating NADH and ATP molecules. When these ATP molecules are produced, we also have pyruvate produced as a low energy molecule. So we need to know where this happens in the mitochondria. You'll notice I've highlighted the inner membrane. That is because this is the place where further mechanisms of cellular respiration occur. So we know glycolysis is in the cytoplasm, but we need to look at the inner membrane specifically for other mechanisms of cellular respiration. And then just some basic terms here. Mitochondria is the cell organelle with aerobic cellular respiration. So I want to highlight aerobic cellular respiration because glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm, which isn't specific to the mitochondria. We have the mitochondrial matrix that fills the interior space of the mitochondria. And so this is the innermost space of the mitochondria. And then the intermembrane space. So we have several membranes. The inner membrane is very folded with cristae. And the intermembrane space is the fluid that fills the spaces between the inner and outer membranes. It's important to know that there's liquid here just in order to facilitate transport of ions within and throughout the cell and throughout the mitochondria. All right, so that's it for glycolysis. If you have any questions, please email me, and let's move on and look at some of the other steps in aerobic cellular respiration. Good luck, guys.